sanctuary. He's known for being the founding member of the pop writing and production team The Matrix, who crafted the pop rock sound of the early 2000s. Spock has written and produced hit singles that have reached #1 worldwide. He's best known for his songs with Avril Lavigne, Korn, Hilary Duff, Shakira, Jason Mraz, David Bowie, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Liz Phair, Busted, and Rihanna. Spock's accolades include 7 Grammy nominations, including Songwriter of the Year, Producer of the Year, the coveted Ivor Novello Award for Best International Pop Song of the Year and Album of the Year. You guys might know that song, Complicated, the worldwide #1 hit that broke radio play held by the Beatles at the time. And Scott and I know each other most recently because of Scott's passion for cars, building Maximus the Ultimate Charger, a hand-built, redesigned, all-metal 1968 Dodge Charger that has 3,000 horsepower and was featured on the scene in Fast and Furious 7. And here we go, Tony. All right. Well, because, yeah, I agree. Well, Tony, there's some things to be said here. So he's an American record producer and audio engineer specializing in mixing, but was involved in the development of the New York R&B hip-hop scene in the 90s, working with Mary J. Blige, Notorious B.I.G., Puff Daddy, Queen Latifah. Since then, he's worked on Grammy-nominated projects with the Black Eyed Peas, Beyonce, Jason Mraz, Robin Thicke, Usher, won a Latin Grammy in 2006. Yeah, I mean, Tony, I agree. Let's get to the meat and potatoes. If you don't know Tony Maseratti, you're probably not standing out here right now. So, all right, guys, I'm going to just dive into the meat and potatoes. And it is great to see such a big crowd out here. Thanks again for coming to our panel. So, what everybody wants to know, Randy, why don't you take us from here? What live performance and or album inspired your journey to be in the music biz?
I got him.
I was a kid in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I went to see a very interesting concert with the Doobie Brothers. At the time they had Old Black Water out. But what really blew me out, and the reason I had Randy Jackson Presents, is this show was presented as Bill Graham Presents, one of the greatest promoters ever, managers ever in life. On that show, opening up for the Doobie Brothers while they're singing Old Black Water was the Mahavishnu Orchestra. My mind was blown. I didn't need drugs, I didn't need anything. You had a fusion group opening for a pop band. Whoa! Who's this promoter? This is a life-changing event. I was hooked after that. That did it for me.
Jerry, you're next to answer that.
Well, I think that I have been in high school bands, and actually it's sort of amazing. In my high school band, the guitar player became Leonard Cohen's guitar player for 25 years. The bass player became Johnny Winter's bass player for 10 years. The singer became the head of the American Institute of Architects. And the drummer went off and fought in the Marines in Vietnam and was in all of it, like Quezon and Hue, and then played drums once in the Modern Lovers for a while. This little suburb north of Milwaukee, it's like, how did this happen? Also, around us were the makers of Airplane, the Zucker brothers, and Naked Gun, and we were just a little fertile group. But I never thought I'd be a professional musician until Jonathan Richman walked in my door. And I was making a movie, I was in college, and I put him in my movie, and then we started hanging around and said, why don't you join the band? And I'm going, up until that point I went, I'm not good enough to be a musician, but I want to be. I thought the music at that time was the most important thing. More important, Bob Dylan and the Beatles were more important than John Kennedy to us. Like, they helped determine what we thought about it, what the culture was. So I felt if I could do that, I would have the most influence on society. And Jonathan gave me that opportunity, and I knew exactly where I fit in with him, and my whole life changed. I dropped out of Harvard the second semester of my senior year to join the Modern Lovers.
All right, Scott, you're up.
Well, actually, I don't really remember the very first moment, but all I ever dreamed about when I was a kid is I wanted to be Freddie Hubbard. Like, I was a trumpet player. That's all I wanted to do, man. I just wanted. I was a jazz head, you know. I mean, all the other kids in my class were. I mean, I was too. I was listening to Zeppelin and everything else, but I was really wanting to be a trumpet player, and that. I had no idea that my journey would end up writing pop songs for 16-year-old girls. Had no idea at the time, you know. That wasn't on the plan, you know. My plan was to get to New York somehow and play. And so, you know, I went to college and I took a break and I went to New York for a minute and started playing around like this club at Visionis down in the village, and that's where you got all the pickup work. You know, anybody who's looking for subs, right? So I was playing, I got picked up, you know, to play in a couple things, and I'm like, oh, this is great. But you never want to meet your idols, right? Because sometimes it's a little scary seeing what's going on. And I hung with Freddie Hubbard one night, man, and it's virtually impossible to hang. I don't know if anybody knows Freddie Hubbard. One of the greatest jazz trumpet players ever lived, man. I could not hang. But you know, he was leading a hard life, you know, and I didn't want to see myself that way, but that led me to the next step, you know. I went back, finished up, you know, college, and I started working as an actuary of all things, and, you know, doing statistics and all that stuff, but I just kept producing records. But in college, I'll make this quick, is Ray Kurzweil made the K250. I don't know if you guys remember that keyboard, but it was one of the coolest keyboards ever made. Made one specifically for Stevie Wonder, but our college got one of those things and nobody ever touched it, and it was like the beginning moments of programming, and I couldn't get other guys to play my songs the way I was hearing in my head, so I like purposely going, wait, I gotta play a bass part, wait a minute, I gotta learn how to play bass. So I went and started studying all the great bass players, all the great drummers, I was taking arranging class, I was trying to figure out all this stuff just so I could make the song better, and this device helped me. It was like really helped me get to where I wanted to be, and then that started my journey, and I ended up in LA and you know, working with different people, different producers, and then one thing led to another, and hard road, but had some success, and here I am on a panel with Randy, Jerry, Tony, Tyler, and I'm happy. So it's like, it's a hard road. I ain't saying it's not, but you know, you got to follow your heart, because we are explorers of the unknown. All of us out here, we're all creative people. Don't ever let anybody stop you from that. Don't let yourself be drawn into a path to satisfy an algorithm. I gotta write this song so Spotify will play it. No, you gotta write a song because it moves you, because other people will hear you and it will move them. Don't ever lose that, because that's what makes you successful in life, and that's the journey I've always felt. So here's Tony.
Yeah, Tony, I'll even change the question up a little bit.
Okay.
So, you know, you were running around New York, and you know, you had the experience of working with a couple guys, and then that guy Puff Daddy came along. Tell us about that experience and the hustle around going out and looking for the collaborations that were going on in hip hop at the time.
You know, I think that I had spent a lot of time working at a studio, Sigma Sound Studios. I met Jerry there. I was an assistant. I was actually a runner, I think, when you guys were making your record, so I wasn't even an assistant. I was making coffee, but I got lucky with connecting with a few artists and a few producing teams, and I was working with Devontae Swing from Jodeci, and we were making a lot of records together every day, cranking, and one day we were working on a duet that Mary J and KC from Jodeci were singing on, and Puffy came in, and you know, it was just a usual thing. I mean, generally in the studio in those days, we would rent a room for either a day or for a week, and nobody would move. I would be there for 16 to 20 hours. Everybody was there round the clock. There were usually 20 people. There were times when I had to stand on my chair and say, all right, you all have to shut up or get out. And there, the din, everybody would be quiet. Maybe one or two people would walk out, and then the din would get low. And then as I was working and I turned my back, working on the console, the din would get louder and louder. So throughout the night, I just stand on my chair. All right, who's got to leave? It's too loud. Got to go. But that session, we had 2 rooms going at Hit Factory, and Hit Factory had a space on 42nd Street at that time, and Puff walked in, chatted with Devante about the duet because Puffy was a young A&R guy for Uptown Records, and then he just kind of leaned over and said, "Hey man, I need some work done," and I said, "Well, great. I'm working with Devante until whatever day, and then I'm splitting for Christmas." And he said, "Well, can you stay and continue?" And I was like, "No, gotta go. I'm leaving town for Christmas, going to see family." And I said, "I'll be back on whatever day it was, the 2nd of January or whatever it was, the 27th of December." So I'm walking up on the stairs of my 2nd floor studio apartment on 5th Street and the Bowery, and my phone is ringing as I'm walking up. Pick it up, it's Puff. He says, "You ready?" I said, "Yeah, let's go." "What time?" 8 o'clock tonight. Cool. That was it. Worked with him for probably the next 4 years, round the clock. And then we continue to work together. I was just saying that I spoke to him 2 days ago. So that relationship was a great relationship for both of us. And I love him like a brother.
It's amazing. I love that. So Jerry, I got a question for you. It's been a few decades since you've been touring out on the road, and I know you and the incredible Adrian Belew have been touring around. Just gotten back off a month trip, touring all over the U.S. What's that like, to bring music live again and not just be in the studio co-creating?
Well, it's wonderful. It's tiring, but it's also really wonderful. And you just feel the joy in the audience. I'm fortunate to have been involved with a number of records that have had great lasting power, and Remain in Light in particular is one that sort of just doesn't go away. It still feels fresh. And Adrian played on Remain in Light. It was in the tour that we did in 1980. There's a YouTube video from Rome. And we always talk about this video. I mean, as great as Stop Making Sense is, there's something about this video of that first band. And I hired that band in one afternoon. And so I feel a particular pride in that that one aggregation that was Talking Heads. So we said, we got to do this. But we now have an 11-person band, and we're going around, and we're basing it on that show in Rome. Adrian does a show from Discipline, the King Crimson album, that he was basically the major writer on. I do Rev It Up for my solo work. And the other musicians had been doing Slippery People, so they do that. Other than that, it's that show purely. But we play, and it's like a wave of joy, especially when it's a mixed audience, just goes out over the audience, and people come and say, "I never thought I'd get to see this live," or "I saw it back then and I can't believe I'm seeing it again." So it's really wonderful.
Jerry, you're my hero. Randy, another one of my heroes. I'm honored to be sitting next to you, in fact. And, you've had so many different stages of your life as an entrepreneur, as a performer, as a producer. How do you do it all? And how are you spending your time nowadays? And before you go into how you're spending your time nowadays, I'm actually curious. We walk around NAMM and we talk about the great collaborations and the creatives that meet each other in the halls of NAMM and that meet each other in the studios. I mean, you've worked with everybody. So what is one of the most lasting memories that you have in terms of working with somebody in the studio, either as a performer, producer, engineer, on whatever side of the, I know it's a loaded question, but there's a lot there. I'm interested in one of those collaborations, and then I think you can dive into how you're spending your time nowadays, because I know you got your hand in about 10, 15 different things.
Thanks, man. Collaborations comes to mind. Wow, let's see, Detroit, Aretha, Jumpin' Jack Flash with the Rolling Stones, Steve Jordan playing drums at that time, me playing bass, Keith and Woody and Chuck Leavell. Being in the studio with those guys, just seeing how chill and cool they are. Like, I don't think Steve Lillywhite was mixing and co-producing. I don't think they went into the control room once. They hung in the studio and just vibed, and we just had a blast. The other one that comes to mind is being in the studio here in LA with the late great Jeff Porcaro and myself working on a Bruce Springsteen record, and just what an amazing human being he is. He's a great songwriter, great singer, great artist, unbelievable, but you never equate that with being just an unbelievable human. Most of the people that are great are usually like, you know, they're a little crazy, if not wild, if not insane. Bruce is none of those things. He just happens to be a great guy. I'm sure in his own way, there's probably some insanity in there, but what a great, lovely human. So I always think back to those things, and I think back from my own experience when I'm in the studio playing, producing, writing, whatever. I want everyone to have that lovable experience so the best in them can come out. And they don't feel like, man, do I have to be crazy and what do I gotta do to get out of here? I need to call Tony Maseratti or Scott or Jerry, you know, to help me out in this crazy situation. So for me now, I've become an entrepreneur the last 15 years. So I got products in the marketplace. We got a pretty healthy management business. We manage writers, producers. We got a handful of chefs. We got, you know, products that we look after. You know, we're developing a lot of TV shows, a lot of movies. It's the extensions of demand, but it almost brought possible for me through the love of music. So I say this, once a creator, always a creator. All these guys, including you, Tyler, we're all creatives. So you can never stop creating, whether that's with cars or Skater Boy that 80 million people, including Olivia Rodrigo's, copied to death, or whatever it is. Still a creator. That's why I can make a car with 3,000 horsepower. 3,000 horsepower in a Dodge. What?
Thanks, Randy. Yeah, 3,000 horsepower. Ironically, it's the same guy that co-wrote and produced Complicated. Complicated process of going through that. So, Tony, you work with Beyonce, Queen Bee. She's collabed with a lot of people. People that have been acknowledged, people that haven't been acknowledged. Doesn't matter. I mean, the idea of working with Queen Bee over the years, give us a little taste of that and some of the stuff that you've taken from the studio that you kind of reflect on being a new dad, kind of running around and sort of doing the bi-coastal thing between, you know, the East and the West Coast.